It was a bright Saturday morning when David and I walked into my sister-in-law Emma's wedding. The sunlight streamed through the windows, bouncing off the fresh flowers carefully arranged on each table. Laughter and chatter filled the air, glasses clinking, cameras flashing, everyone celebrating what should have been a perfect day. Yet, somewhere deep inside me, a small knot of unease had already formed. I couldn't explain why, but I had this gnawing feeling that today wasn't going to be just another ordinary wedding. David looked perfect, as always. Lean, fit, and confident, his black suit tailored to accentuate his physique. He had that effortless charm that made people turn their heads. And there I was, standing beside him, noticing every subtle change in myself. Motherhood had left its marks. My waist was no longer slim, my arms and legs softer than they used to be, and my hair lacked the shine it had once held. I tried to take a deep breath and tell myself that he still loved me, that he still saw me the way he used to. But in the pit of my stomach, a quiet fear had already taken root. Would he still see me that way? We greeted relatives and friends, exchanged polite smiles, and stepped through the crowd. But all of that faded when David's gaze landed on someone across the room. My stomach dropped. There she was, Julia, David's high school ex. I remembered him talking about her back then with that sparkle in his eyes, like she was the brightest star in his teenage world. And now, decades later, she stood before us, radiant as ever, fit, confident, glowing, with effortless charm that made time seem irrelevant. Every detail of her presence reminded me of what I had lost, or perhaps what time had taken from me. I tried to tell myself, it's just a greeting. It's nothing. But as David walked toward her, I could see the subtle changes in him. His smile was a little stiff, his movements slightly awkward. This wasn't the David I knew, confident, relaxed, effortlessly charming. There was hesitation, a hint of nervousness that made my chest tighten. And then a wave of self-consciousness and jealousy hit me. Julia, young and radiant, with no children or responsibilities tying her down, seemed to embody the ideal David might secretly admire. And there I was, a mother, a wife, someone who had given up parts of her youth for family, suddenly feeling invisible. I forced a smile, telling myself, he still loves me, right? He still finds me beautiful. But the fear persisted. Would he still see me as the woman he fell in love with, or had time already shifted the balance? Memories flooded in. I remembered the way David used to introduce me with pride. This is my wife, the most beautiful woman I know. I had felt adored, cherished, celebrated. Now he bent his head slightly when introducing me to Julia, speaking softly, avoiding eye contact. A pang of rejection and embarrassment shot through me. Why did I feel so small, so insignificant, in what should have been a joyous celebration? I watched Julia laugh, confident and radiant. David's awkward nods, his quick glances, the way he searched for words, all of it made my heart race. I felt left behind. Teenage memories of David talking about Julia resurfaced vividly, reminding me of a time when he admired her, even with nothing but nostalgia and youthful infatuation. I couldn't stop the comparisons. Julia, still toned and radiant, graceful in every step. Me, changed by motherhood, bearing the traces of years spent nurturing our family. The sounds of music and chatter faded into the background. My mind replayed one question over and over. Does he still find me attractive? Does he still love me the way he used to? I tried to smile, to mask the sting of my feelings, but every glance, Every awkward movement from David felt like a reminder of what had shifted between us, and yet, amid the pain, I remembered our past, the hand-holding, the whispers of love, the pride he took in being with me. But seeing him with Julia, the hesitation, the embarrassment when introducing me, it was like a mirror reflecting a truth I wasn't ready to face. Time changes everything. A mix of hurt, jealousy, and insecurity bubbled inside me. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to cry. I wanted to disappear. Julia smiled, shining effortlessly, and I realized I was standing amidst a storm of emotions: love, jealousy, fear, embarrassment, longing. I wondered, would David ever look at me with the same eyes again? Would he see me as the woman he fell in love with? Or had Julia's effortless radiance reminded him of what I no longer was? I took a deep breath and tried to meet his gaze, to see the man I loved. But even in his eyes, I glimpsed hesitation, a hint of embarrassment, and that made me tremble. I knew, at that very moment, that this wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a test of our marriage, my self-esteem, and how we perceived each other after all these years together. I forced a smile, blending into the joyful atmosphere, but deep down, a quiet, persistent fear burned. From this moment on, nothing would ever be quite the same. That Saturday morning, the sunlight spilled gently into the wedding hall, but inside me, a gnawing unease had already taken hold. The space was breathtaking: fresh flowers in shades of pink, white and yellow, crystal chandeliers casting sparkling patterns on the polished wooden floor. Laughter and chatter filled the room, glasses clinking, a live band playing softly in the background, creating an atmosphere of joy and celebration. Yet, amidst all this, I felt a quiet storm brewing inside. David looked perfect, as always. Tall, lean, and toned, his black suit hugging his body just right. His confident smile and easy charm made heads turn. I couldn't help but think, I am lucky to have him. But looking at my reflection in the window pane, I felt the weight of time. Motherhood had left its mark. My waist was no longer as slim, my arms and legs softer, my hair less glossy. I tried to breathe deeply, to calm myself, but a persistent self-consciousness had already taken root. We walked past tables of family and friends, exchanged polite smiles, yet everything faded when David's gaze landed on someone across the room. My chest tightened. There she was, Julia, David's high school ex. I remembered how he spoke about her as a teenager: radiant, confident, someone who effortlessly drew his attention. And now, here she was, as stunning as ever fit, graceful, glowing, every step and gesture exuding poise. Every detail reminded me of what time had taken from me, of youth and confidence I once had. I told myself, it's just a greeting, nothing to worry about. But the look in David's eyes said otherwise. David walked toward her, a slightly awkward smile on his lips. He wasn't the confident, relaxed man I knew. This was a forced, tentative charm, a smile tinged with nervousness, like he wanted to impress her. Julia smiled back, eyes sparkling, confident and unbothered, making David shift uncomfortably. I stood a few steps away, feeling like an observer in my own life, witnessing a moment where I should have been the center. "Julia, it's been so long," David said, his voice light but slightly breathless. I noticed him constantly glancing at me, checking my reaction. Julia smiled, reaching to shake David's hand naturally, yet subtly studying the dynamic, and I felt a flicker of curiosity in her gaze, friendly, not malicious. When David introduced me, everything felt tense. He lowered his head, voice soft. This is my wife." There was a brief pause before he continued. "Yes, she is." The awkwardness was palpable in every word, every movement. In the past, he would have introduced me with pride, eyes shining, a beaming smile. "This is my wife, the most beautiful woman I know." But now, he kept his head down, voice low, avoiding Julia's gaze and, more painfully, mine. My heart sank. Julia smiled gently, self-assured, radiant without any effort. I watched David head down, quiet voice, forced smile. It all screamed one thing. He wanted to impress Julia, and I, the woman who had stood by him for years, felt invisible. Every small detail cut into me. The way Julia looked at David, her smile, her graceful movements, her natural confidence. All of it made me question myself. Does he still find me attractive, or is he silently comparing me to her? I tried to hold my breath, to suppress the pain, but jealousy and insecurity surged uncontrollably. David continued talking with Julia, but his eyes kept avoiding me. I could feel the internal struggle, wanting to be friendly, wanting to impress, trying to hide what he really felt. Watching him like that, I wanted to believe he still loved me, yet the truth stung. I was not the priority at that moment. The moment stretched, heavy and tense. The laughter, the music, the clinking glasses faded into a blur. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, feeling the sting of hurt, jealousy, and inadequacy. Julia shone effortlessly, David fumbled subtly, and I stood there, witnessing my relationship shift right in front of me. Finally, David turned to me, offering a weak smile. Are you okay?" His voice low, slightly trembling. I forced a polite smile, taking a deep breath to steady myself, but inside, the ache remained. I realized that this wasn't just a casual meeting, it was a test, a subtle challenge to our love, my self-esteem, and how we viewed each other after all these years together. I tried to blend into the festive atmosphere, to join the joy around me, but deep inside, a quiet, persistent fear burned. Julia wasn't just an old friend. She was a mirror reflecting my insecurities, my appearance, my attractiveness, my love, and my soul. I knew that from this moment on, nothing would feel the same, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to face what lay ahead. Meanwhile, David remained awkward, trying to appear natural, but every gesture, every glance betrayed him. He wanted attention, approval, and was startled by Julia's radiant presence. I stood there, watching, feeling the tension and contradictions in him of insecurity, jealousy, and the fear of making a wrong impression. This moment, long and heavy, wasn't just a minor social awkwardness. It set the stage for the conflicts to come, confrontation at home, sexual frustrations, and external temptations. I knew from here everything had changed. I would have to confront my fears, my pain, and my insecurities like never before. We got home after the wedding, and the tension that had been simmering in the car was almost suffocating. David drove in silence, the faint music from the stereo doing nothing to ease the weight between us. I sat in the passenger seat, hands resting tensely in my lap, trying to calm myself. But the encounter with Julia lingered, raw and unrelenting. Every glance he gave, every forced smile he had directed at me earlier, felt like a stab through my chest. "You." "Okay," David finally broke the silence. His voice was quiet, hesitant, as though he were treading carefully around an invisible minefield. "I'm fine," I said, voice trembling slightly. I didn't want to argue in the car, but the tension was unbearable. I needed to speak, to confront him. Once we were home, I led David to the living room, the warm glow of a table lamp highlighting the worry etched on his face. "David, we need to talk," I started, trying to keep my tone calm, though inside I felt a storm raging. "Were you embarrassed to introduce me to Julia? Because of how I look? Because of my body?" David exhaled heavily, shoulders slumping. He didn't respond immediately, searching for words. "No, it's not you. I'm not embarrassed by you. You're the mother of our kids. He trailed off, and the silence that followed tightened around me like a vice. "Just what?" I pressed, unable to hide the hurt in my eyes. "You mean you don't find me attractive anymore, right?" David turned to the window, staring outside, his eyes distant. I don't know how to say it. I love you. I've always loved you. But you have to understand. Julia, she's young, fit. I can't control my feelings when I see her. I feel awkward, and I didn't want you to think I don't love you anymore. I do, truly. But I admit, I don't feel the same attraction as I did when we first met. It felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. Every word stabbed at my heart, a mix of heartbreak and disbelief. So, I'm just the mom now, not the woman you desire. My voice cracked, tears welling in my eyes. David looked at me, eyes filled with guilt. "It's not that. I love you in a different way. But I know I let this happen. I want to fix it." Anger and grief surged through me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run away. I looked at David, the man I had loved, sacrificed for. Given so much of my life to Ond, now he stood there, confessing a truth that cut me to the core. We tried to be intimate, but the tension from the evening had frozen everything. David reached for me, yet his touch felt hesitant, unsure. He couldn't maintain an erection. No longer the confident man who could wake up hard or respond to actresses on TV. The man I knew seemed distant, embarrassed, almost powerless. I felt his shame and disappointment in the subtle tremors of his hands, in the way he paused and sighed. The man who once made me feel desired, wanted, and cherished now struggled to connect physically and emotionally. I held him, tears streaming down, not from weakness, but from the crushing weight of lost the youth, the attractiveness, the vitality I had sacrificed for family. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside him, listening to his even breathing, feeling a closeness that was tinged with distance. I felt utterly alone, even in the home we had built together. Jealousy, disappointment, and hurt mingled, creating a storm in my mind that I couldn't quiet. And then a dangerous thought crept in. I went online, visiting forums for plus-size women, talking to strangers. One man, younger and attractive, even suggested a video call. In that vulnerable moment while the kids slept and I battled the flu, I entertained a fantasy. A brief, dangerous thought of stepping outside my marriage, imagining a thrill that could ruin everything in a single misstep. The next morning, I knew I had to confess. I told David everything. My thoughts, the temptation, the fleeting consideration of betrayal. He listened, worry and remorse in his eyes. He swore he had never cheated, never strayed, but finally admitted the truth he had struggled to voice. He wasn't as attracted to me as he once had been, I know. "I hurt you," David said. I know it sounds shallow and foolish, but I want to make it right. I promise I'll do everything I can to fix us. I love you. You are still the woman I choose, the one I want by my side." I looked at him, heart torn, but a small spark of hope flickered. I vowed to try to rebuild, to repair, but I knew that we both had to face the insecurities, jealousy, and suppressed emotions that had been simmering for years. That night, we couldn't go back to how things were, but at least we were starting to confront the truth. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow on the living room where I sat, holding a steaming cup of coffee, though my mind was anything but calm. After the tense confrontation with David the night before, I felt exhausted yet determined. I knew that if I wanted to save our marriage, I had to face my fears and insecurities head on. David walked in, eyes full of remorse. I want to say I'm truly sorry for last night. I know I hurt you, and I want to change, to start over," he said, his voice steady but sincere. I looked at him, sensing the honesty in his words. Yet a shadow of doubt lingered. Was his effort really enough to fix what had been broken? We began a long, open conversation, the first in months where we truly shared our feelings, worries, and fears of losing each other. I confessed my dangerous thoughts from the night before, the fleeting temptation of talking to a stranger online. David listened silently, worry and guilt etched in his expression. "I never wanted you to go that far. I'll do whatever it takes to fix us." "I love you," he said, his voice quivering slightly. I felt the sincerity in every word, but I knew words alone wouldn't repair the damage. We decided to start changing ourselves. I focused on myself, exercising, eating healthier, and reconnecting with hobbies I had abandoned since having the kids. But this wasn't just about appearance. I worked on loving myself again, seeing myself with pride and confidence, instead of constantly comparing myself to Julia or anyone else. David, too, didn't sit idly by. He began spending more quality time with me, really checking in on my feelings. We cooked together, went for walks, and shared old memories of when we were first in love. Small gestures, but filled with genuine intention and determination. He even acknowledged that he had been too focused on appearances and needed to appreciate me for who I was, my body, my life experience, and the time we'd spent building a family. Yet challenges didn't disappear. One afternoon, while David was at work, I received a message from a stranger online, the same man I had briefly spoken to before. His words were flirtatious, even provocative. A small thrill ran through me, a reminder of lingering insecurity and desire for attention. But I immediately thought of David and the promises we were trying to honor, and I chose not to reply. I realized that if I truly wanted to save our relationship, I had to set clear boundaries and take control of my emotions. Meanwhile, David's efforts continued. He created weekly date nights, not with friends, but for us to talk, to reconnect, to understand each other again. He shared his insecurities, the awkward moments when he saw Julia, and for the first time, I saw a side of David that was completely honest, unguarded. His vulnerability moved me, even as it reminded me of the hurt. I realized that despite our pain, there was still a chance if we faced the truth together. We also sought professional help, attending sessions with a marriage counselor. The first few sessions were tense, forcing us to confront feelings and thoughts we'd kept hidden. I cried, David held my hand, and for the first time in months, I felt truly seen and heard. We began to understand that love isn't just about looks or initial attraction, it's about deep connection. empathy, and the ability to navigate challenges together. One night, after a yoga session, we sat on the balcony, staring at a sky full of stars. The night was quiet except for the gentle rustling of leaves. David turned to me softly. "I know I hurt you, but I want you to know I'm willing to fight for this love. I want us to become the best versions of ourselves, not just for each other, but for our kids too." I smiled, tears rolling down my cheeks. In that moment, hope sparked within me. We weren't the young lovers we used to be, but we could be stronger, wiser, more understanding, and capable of appreciating each other. I felt empowered from myself, from David, and from the life and family we had built together. Still, challenges persisted. One evening, while David was on a business trip, I received another message from that same stranger, more daring and provocative than before. My heart raced, but instead of replying, I reminded myself, if I truly love David, I have to overcome this temptation. I must protect my family. I blocked him, feeling both strength and pride in my decision. Meanwhile, David faced his own trials at work and in social situations, realizing that initial physical attraction wasn't everything. Care, honesty, and emotional connection were the true foundations of a lasting marriage. That weekend, we went out together, walking through the park, sipping coffee, talking about small dreams we had once neglected. I realized that these simple acts were the building blocks of love. No comparison, no self-doubt, just safety, appreciation, and mutual respect. Though tension and small frustrations still arose, we learned to face them rather than avoid them. Every challenge, every flicker of insecurity became an opportunity to strengthen our bond, to understand each other, and to heal past wounds. In the end, I understood that rebuilding wasn't just about David or MIT, was about us as a family. The sacrifices, growth, and challenges we faced together became the true foundation of enduring love. And for the first time in months, I felt at peace, even knowing that more challenges lay ahead. The following week, we were invited to a charity gala organized by David's company. The event was held in a luxurious hotel ballroom, lights sparkling, soft jazz filling the air. I wore the dress I had just bought after committing to take care of myself again. It was elegant, flattering, and highlighted the curves I had gradually learned to embrace. Still, my heart raced with anxiety. Would David look at me with love, or would he still compare me to younger, more glamorous women? David stood beside me, sharp in a black suit. I saw pride in his posture, but also a trace of tension, not toward me, but toward the environment, filled with curious and judgmental eyes. As we entered the room, greetings, polite smiles, and the laughter of the guests felt like a thin veil over deeper, unspoken emotions. I gripped David's hand tightly, trying to steady myself, but my gaze inevitably flicked toward young, slim, stunning women nearby. A familiar unease gnawed at me. Was I enough? During the evening, David was introduced to some VIPs and former colleagues. A young woman, dressed elegantly, sleek and poised, started chatting with him. I noticed lingering glances, polished smiles, and her subtle focus on him. That familiar mix of insecurity and comparison surged up again, and my chest tightened. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to engage with the other guests. But the undercurrent of jealousy and fear didn't fade. David sensed my tension. He glanced at me and squeezed my hand, a silent reminder that I was the one he chose. I felt a warmth in that small gesture, yet the unease lingered. When the young woman offered David a glass of wine, He declined politely, immediately turning his gaze back to me. Relief washed over me, but I knew the test wasn't over. As the night went on, fatigue set in. Suddenly, I saw him, the man I had spoken to online weeks earlier, the one who had flirted with me. He appeared at the event, smiling, approaching me casually as if he belonged there. My heart raced. Fear, shame, and curiosity collided. I realized just how easily I could have slipped back into temptation if I hadn't been careful. David noticed the change on my face instantly. His eyes found the man, sharp with a mix of caution and protective anger. He stepped toward me, firm yet gentle. "I know this guy, right? Leave him alone. We're here together," he said, a mix of sternness and care. I felt the protective love in his words, and tears welled up, not just from embarrassment, but from the emotional weight of realizing how much he still cared. Later that night, back home, we sat across from each other in the living room. No guests, no bright lights, only the quiet space and our raw emotions. I held David's hands, speaking softly. "Today, I realize that insecurity is still there, and temptations can still appear. But I also realized that you still choose me." David smiled, his gaze tender yet intense. "I know, and I also know we have to remind each other of that every day. Trust isn't always easy, but if we face it together, we'll be stronger." We discussed new boundaries for our relationship, not just about appearances or fidelity, but about how to handle temptation, honest communication, and genuine transparency. I shared my thoughts about meeting strangers online, about moments of weakness and self-doubt. David didn't judge me. He listened, held my hands, and promised to face these challenges alongside me. That night, we attempted intimacy, again not just physical, but emotional. David's confidence returned, but this time, it wasn't based on other women or superficial attraction. It was rooted in understanding, care, and genuine appreciation for me as I truly was. The next morning, looking at myself in the mirror, I realized that small changes, self-care, a positive mindset was starting to make a difference. More importantly, I recognized my inner strength and emotional control. External challenges no longer felt threatening because I had learned to value myself and the love we were. Nurturing that marriage still brought tension and tests, but this time, David and I faced them directly, together. We understood that love isn't about initial attraction or appearances, it's a daily choice. A commitment to fight for the relationship and our family. The gala and the brief temptation it brought became an important trial for us. We learned that lasting love requires effort, honesty, and the courage to confront every challenge, both external and internal. That night, we sat on the balcony with cups of tea, gazing at the night sky. The world was quiet except for us and our thoughts. I felt a new strength. We had survived the test, appreciated each other's value, and prepared ourselves for whatever challenges lay ahead. A few weeks after the charity gala, our family was invited to a large family gathering, a multi-generational event with grandparents, aunts and uncles, siblings and cousins. The evening promised warmth and laughter, but deep down, I felt a creeping anxiety. Previous family gatherings had always left me on edge, and now, with recent strains in my marriage, every glance and comment felt magnified. David drove us there, our 2 kids in the back seat, unaware of the tension in the car. I glanced at him and noticed a shadow of worry in his eyes, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than usual. "You okay?" I whispered. He gave me a small, strained smile. I'll be fine. I just don't want anything to happen between us tonight, he replied. As we entered the venue, warm lighting revealed familiar faces. Handshakes, hugs, and friendly smiles filled the room. But within minutes, I caught sight of an old family friend, someone close to David's past, whose presence immediately made my chest tighten. David noticed her too and shifted slightly, a brief flicker of discomfort crossing his face. The evening started with small talk, but tension quickly built as old memories surfaced. Some relatives made subtle remarks about my appearance or lifestyle. A casual comment about me looking a little tired or needing to lose a bit of weight made my cheeks flush, and my heart rate spiked. In that moment, all the insecurities and emotional wounds of recent months rushed back. David noticed my unease and took my hand under the table. But it wasn't just reassurance. He seemed slightly nervous, introducing me to old friends who knew about his past. Conversations inevitably drifted toward Julia and his youthful romances, and I felt myself being compared once again, silently. In a room full of eyes, my emotions oscillated between embarrassment, anger, and anxiety. I remembered the promises we had made to each other, the efforts to repair our marriage. Yet here, in the middle of family scrutiny, it felt as though all progress was being tested. Tensions peaked when a distant relative, either innocently or intentionally, mentioned David's past dating life with a close family friend, Julia. My chest tightened. David quickly reached for my hand, whispering, "You are the one I chose. I want everyone to know that." I nodded, feeling the weight and certainty in his words. Yet my heart still raced. After the gathering, back at home, David and I sat down to talk. I asked quietly, "Do you still feel anything when you see someone like Julia or your old friends?" He looked at me, silent for a moment, then sighed. "I won't lie, there are fleeting moments of nostalgia. But you are the one I want. You are the one I'm with, and I know what I need to do to protect this love." We discussed confronting the past, managing interactions with people who had been part of David's earlier life, and maintaining self-confidence, loyalty, and respect for each other. I shared my hurt, embarrassment, and anxiety about being judged in front of family. David listened, held my hands, and together we found ways to calmly and thoughtfully navigate each issue. In the following weeks, family pressure continued. Innocuous comments and scrutinizing looks sometimes made me want to retreat, but instead of avoiding the situation, I decided to face it, walk alongside David, and demonstrate the confidence I had been rebuilding. I realized that change wasn't just about appearance, it was about inner strength and emotional control. During this time, David and I also faced an external challenge. An old friend of his, who had been close to Julia, unexpectedly appeared at a company meeting. He spoke politely, but I could sense the subtle curiosity and judgment in his gaze. A wave of jealousy and unease surged within me, but this time, instead of reacting impulsively, I took a deep breath, looked at David, and remembered the trust and love we were striving to protect. David noticed my tension, squeezed my hand again, and said, "We've been through so much already. See, we're still okay." His simple reassurance grounded me, reminding me that despite all conflicts and pressure, we were moving in the right direction. Over the next few weeks, we continued learning to face the past, resolve internal conflicts, and strengthen trust. We realized that marriage isn't just about two people in love. It's about the ability to navigate family pressures, social scrutiny, and personal insecurities together. On the final night of this series of family events, after the kids were asleep, David and I sat on the balcony, staring up at the star-filled sky. We held hands in silence, but we both understood we had survived an intense period of trials, yet more challenges awaited. Patience, trust, and the courage to confront the past would be the keys to maintaining our love and our family. In that quiet moment, I felt a newfound strength. We were not just husband and wife, but partners ready to face any pressure, any temptation, any conflict, growing stronger and protecting the love we had chosen. After the intense series of family events, I felt a chaos inside me I had never experienced before. Even though David and I had been working to rebuild trust and confront the past, there were still moments when I felt emotionally unsteady. Jealousy, insecurity, and self-doubt smoldered beneath the surface, flaring up in the most unexpected moments. One quiet weekend afternoon, while David was away on a business trip and the kids were napping, loneliness hit me like a wave. I opened my laptop and found myself scrolling through websites. I normally despise places where men flirted with older or curvier women. My heart raced, a strange mix of excitement and guilt washing over me. I realized I was facing a real temptation. A part of me wanted validation, attention, to remember that I could still be desired. While I hesitated, a man from my city who had messaged me before appeared online. He was attractive, charming, and showed an immediate interest in me. Just seeing him on the screen made my pulse quicken and revived that old thrill of being noticed, the thrill I had craved. I knew I was at a dangerous crossroads. One click, one lapse in judgment, and I could destroy everything David and I had worked to build at the same time. Memories of love, trust, and family flooded back. I thought of David, of his promises, of the efforts we had made to mend our relationship, and I looked at my 2 children sleeping peacefully in the next room. The temptation was sharp, but so was a newfound resolve. I had to fight this, for myself and for my family. That evening, when David called via video from his trip, I couldn't hide the turmoil inside me. I confessed everything, the loneliness, the struggle, and even that I had reached out to this man. He listened silently, without anger, without judgment. Just a look on his face, concerned and caring, was enough to remind me how much he still loved me. David spoke slowly. I love you, and I know what you're going through. I've never cheated on you, and I would never want you to do that. But I also understand loneliness and temptation. They're always going to challenge us. What matters is facing them together. His words were comforting, like a balm, but also a firm reminder. I knew then that love is a constant battle with our emotions, with ourselves, and sometimes with external temptations. I made the decision to block him, erase all messages, and commit to myself that I would not let fleeting desire destroy my family. The next day, David returned home. We embraced in the living room, holding each other for a long moment. No words were needed, just a connection, a reminder that we still loved each other and were willing to fight for this love. Then we sat down to discuss boundaries, maintaining fidelity, and caring for our emotional well-being. I shared my feelings of loneliness, fear, and the inner struggle I had faced while he was away. David listened patiently and offered gentle, thoughtful guidance. That weekend, we decided to do something special to rebuild our bond. A short getaway to the countryside, just us and the kids. No phones, no work emails, no social media, only family and genuine connection. On the drive, I felt a new sense of calm. Temptations and outside pressures still existed, but I had learned to recognize them, understand my emotions, and make the right choices. During the trip, David and I cooked together, played games with the kids, and shared funny memories we had almost forgotten. I realized that closeness, genuine affection, and quality time were the true remedies for the deepest wounds, not compliments from strangers or comparisons to the past. That night, after the kids were asleep, David and I sat on the balcony under the starry sky. He held my hand gently. "I know you had to fight with yourself today. I'm proud of you. We'll face more challenges, but I know we'll get through them." I felt the strength in his words. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace, confidence, and a firm determination to protect the love I had. I also realized that challenges never truly end. Temptation, family pressures, and life's difficulties will continue to appear. What mattered was that I had learned to face them, stay resilient, and trust the love David and I were nurturing. I felt stronger, no longer dependent on the gaze or praise of others, but valuing myself and my family. Most of all, those lonely and tempting hours became a valuable lesson. I learned to say no, to control my emotions, and to nurture a love that is genuine, deep, and lasting. I understood that a successful marriage isn't always easy, but with honesty, determination, and trust, every challenge can be overcome. On the final night of our getaway, we sat together by the fireplace, listening to the wind outside. The world was quiet, leaving only love and connection between us. I knew that no matter what temptations or challenges the future held, David and I would always hold hands, face everything together, and build a strong, lasting family. A few weeks after our short getaway to the countryside, I began to feel a certain calm returning to our marriage. David and I had been learning to confront the past, manage our emotions, and rebuild trust. The kids were happier, and it seemed like our family was gradually stabilizing after the months of tension and struggle. But as life often proves, peace is never permanent. One Friday afternoon, while David was away on another business trip and I had just picked the kids up from school, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unfamiliar number on an app I had tried once, long ago. My chest tightened. The message stirred up the familiar feelings of loneliness, the need for validation, and the temptation I had been fighting so hard against. For a few minutes, I wrestled with myself. One part of me wanted to respond, to feel desirable, to hear compliments, to remind myself that I could still turn heads. Another part of me screamed warnings. Think of David, the family, everything you've worked to protect. The internal battle was brutal, leaving me paralyzed with indecision. That evening, David called via video. Seeing his face tired but warm, with eyes full of Karai, couldn't hold back the tears. I confessed everything, the moments of weakness, the temptation, the nervous thrill I had felt when I considered responding to the man on the app. I shared the shame I had carried in silence, the secret struggle that I never wanted anyone, least of all David, to know. David listened silently, without anger, without judgment. Then he sighed and spoke slowly. "I know there will be challenges, but you need to understand, love and marriage aren't always easy. What matters is that you recognize your limits and value what you already have." His words were both comforting and firm, a reminder that honesty and self-awareness are key to sustaining a relationship. I felt a mixture of relief and self-reproach. knowing how close I had come to jeopardizing everything. The next day, David returned home. The atmosphere in the living room was tense. We both understood that tonight's conversation would be pivotal. I looked him in the eyes and asked, "Do you still truly love me? Because sometimes it feels like you've changed." David lowered his gaze for a moment, then met my eyes with absolute honesty. "I love you, but I need to admit, I'm not as physically attracted to you as I used to be. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I want to be truthful. When I met Julia or ran into old friends, I felt awkward. I wanted to impress them, to feel young again. I know that was wrong, and I want to fix it." My heart felt like it was being squeezed. There was pain in hearing the truth, but also relief. At least he was honest. We cried together, completely raw, sharing our emotions without pretense. For the first time, we confronted the truth head on. No masks, no illusions. That night, we made a crucial decision: to recommit. We discussed boundaries, how to handle temptation, and how to heal our relationship, not just physically, but emotionally. David promised to do everything in his power to show love and respect, not just through words, but through actions. I promised to honor myself, value our family, and work with him to rebuild our bond. The days that followed presented new challenges. Outside pressures didn't disappear. An old friend, someone with ties to Julia, unexpectedly appeared at a work party David attended. His polite but scrutinizing glance reminded us of past relationships and unwanted comparisons. But this time, we faced it together. I didn't flinch, and David didn't falter. We held hands, sharing strength and confidence, protecting each other from the subtle threats of temptation and judgment. One evening, after the kids were asleep, we sat together on the balcony under the night sky. The silence was comforting. I whispered, "Do you know how afraid I was of losing you?" David squeezed my hand tightly. "I know, and I was afraid of losing you too. But if we stay together, face every challenge side by side, I know we'll endure." That night, we held each other longer than usual. No words were necessary. Every embrace, every glance was a promise. I realized marriage isn't always about passion or constant attraction. It's about a long, sometimes an exhausting journey that demands honesty, patience, and relentless effort. Every trial we faced that week, the temptation, family pressures, the fear of losing one another, became invaluable lessons. We learned to face reality, to forgive, to heal, and to love through action as well as emotion. On the final day of that week, we took the kids to the park. Sunlight filtered through the trees, laughter echoing around us. I looked at David, then at our children, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. All the struggles, all the moments of inner conflict were worth it. We were still together, still in love, and ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In that peaceful moment, I felt a renewed strength. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a daily choice. We had survived the greatest storm, yet acknowledged the truth, confronted temptation, and emerged stronger, more connected, and more mature than ever. After weeks of tension, temptations, and emotional upheaval, David and I began to realize something crucial. Love isn't just about the initial spark or fleeting attraction, it's about daily choices and consistent actions. We were both exhausted after the storm we'd been through, but at the same time, a renewed determination started to take root. We were determined to rebuild trust, heal the wounds that had formed, and reaffirm each other's worth in our lives. One bright Saturday morning, with sunlight streaming softly through the window. We decided to sit down for a serious conversation. There would be no judgment, no hidden truths, just honesty, vulnerability, and a shared desire to fix what had been broken. I took David's hand, my voice trembling slightly but firm. "David, I know we've been through more than either of us expected. I want to do everything I can to save this marriage. But I need your support and your trust." David met my eyes, his gaze filled with both love and regret. "I know," he admitted. "I've hurt you with my distractions and my lack of honesty. But from now on, I want to change. I want us to rebuild our happiness together." We held each other's gaze in silence for a long moment, letting the weight of our past struggles give way to a shared determination for the future. From that day forward, we began to act, not just talk, about rebuilding our connection. Our actions were small but meaningful, gradually forming new habits of intimacy and care. Mornings became a time for us to exercise together, sharing conversation, laughter, and hopes for the day. We cooked together, taking joy in preparing meals as a team, savoring the simple acts of partnership that had once seemed ordinary but now felt profoundly important. One evening, after the kids were asleep, David surprised me with a small notebook. Inside were dozens of little notes, affirmations of love, reminders of our commitments, and words meant to lift my spirit. Tears welled up as I flipped through the pages. "Every day," he said, "look at these notes and remember that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. And it's action, day in and day out." I nodded, sensing that this was a turning point, an anchor to restore trust and cement the bond we had fought so hard to protect. Over the following weeks, our focus expanded beyond just us as a couple to nurturing our family as a whole. We took the kids on small weekend trips, played games together, and read stories, weaving laughter and shared experiences into our daily lives. Each moment of connection reinforced the stability and warmth of our home, and the love between David and me grew stronger as a result. Challenges didn't vanish completely. A casual message from an old friend of David's popped up one afternoon, a birthday greeting that might once have triggered jealousy or insecurity. But this time, I looked at David, and he took my hand, smiling gently. "We've been through too much to let that shake us. I only choose you, and you are the person I love." That simple affirmation filled me with confidence and a sense of security that our relationship was truly on solid ground. We also made room for intentional date nights at home, turned off our phones, put away work, and created a private space for connection. We cooked together, played music, and shared reflections on the journey we'd endured. David said softly, "I know there will still be challenges ahead, but if we are honest and face them together, nothing can break us." I felt a profound agreement in my heart. After all is a practice, a series of choices, and acts of care every single day. During this period, I came to a powerful realization. Love isn't measured by fleeting excitement or physical attraction alone. It is patience, honesty, and courage. The courage to confront difficulties and to commit to growth. When both partners are willing to nurture and protect the relationship, marriage becomes a meaningful journey, rather than an endless cycle of insecurity and misunderstandings. Looking back, all the trials, temptations, and external pressures we faced were lessons in resilience. We learned to truly listen, to understand, and to value one another in ways we hadn't before. Love had transformed from a superficial, momentary spark into a deeply rooted partnership built on trust, empathy, and commitment. By the end of the weekend, we took the kids for a long walk in the park. Sunlight filtered through the branches, children's laughter echoing around us. I looked at David, then at our children, and felt the weight of everything we'd endured lift away. Every effort, every struggle had been worth it. We were still together, still in love, and ready to face whatever the future might hold. In that quiet, peaceful moment, I felt a new strength settle in my chest. Love, I realized, isn't just a feeling. It's a daily choice. A series of deliberate acts and the patience to see each other through trials. We had survived the storm, faced the truth, confronted temptation, and emerged stronger, more connected, and more mature than ever before. We had learned that marriage is an ongoing journey. It isn't always easy, and it isn't always glamorous, but with honesty, trust, and persistent effort, it is possible to maintain a lasting love and a happy family. And for the first time in a long time, I felt entirely certain that we were moving forward together, steadily, hand in hand, hearts open. After all the challenges, temptations, and silent doubts, David and I found ourselves at a crucial crossroads. Either let the past mistakes dictate our future, or face life with renewed trust, love, and commitment. We chose the first, choosing to love, to value one another, and to act deliberately for the sake of our family. One sunny Sunday morning, light streaming gently through the blinds, I woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes. David was in the kitchen, quietly preparing breakfast for all of us. He looked up, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Good morning, my love," he said softly. It was a small gesture, simple and ordinary, yet it resonated deeply. I realized that happiness isn't always born from grand gestures, thrives in small, consistent acts of care and attention. We started our day by taking the kids to the park. Their laughter echoed in the crisp morning air, and David's smile reflected pure joy. For the first time in a long while, there were no lingering doubts, no insecurities, only the simple, profound happiness of being together, a restored sense of family connection, and a rekindled love between husband and wife. Throughout that day, we talked about everything: family plans, personal goals, and even those private emotions that had once been bottled up. David no longer seemed uneasy or hesitant around me. His eyes were full of respect, admiration, and love. I too gradually let go of my self-consciousness about my body or fleeting moments of insecurity, because I knew that he had made a choice to stay, to commit, and to rebuild what mattered most. That afternoon, back at home, we cooked dinner together. The kitchen was alive with laughter, playful banter, and tender glances. I realized that these ordinary moments, working side by side, sharing responsibilities, caring for each other, were the true foundation of lasting happiness. It wasn't about perfection or passion alone. It was about presence, partnership, and a shared life. After putting the kids to bed, we stepped out onto the balcony, gazing at a sky full of stars. David held my hand gently, his voice low and steady. "I know there will still be challenges ahead, but I truly believe that if we stay honest, supportive, and loving, nothing can break us." I smiled, feeling a profound sense of security. The doubts, temptations, and anxieties of the past had become lesson stools that had strengthened our connection and helped us grow together in the following days. We began planning for the future together: extracurricular activities for the kids, family outings, even tentative ideas for a long vacation. we understood that happiness requires ongoing effort, intentional moments together, thoughtful actions, and consistent demonstrations of love, rather than empty words. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, David surprised me again. "I want to thank you," he said, "for being honest, for being patient, and for staying by my side. I know I've made mistakes, but you chose to stay and work through them with me. I love you more than ever." My throat tightened and tears pricked at my eyes, because these words weren't just promises, they were proof of growth, accountability, and a renewed commitment. We also took the time to teach our children about family values, honesty, and resilience. We wanted them to understand that marriage isn't perfect, but when built on trust, effort, and love, it can endure anything. It wasn't just a lesson for us, it was a lesson for the next generation. Later, when we were alone, David and I reflected on our journey, the pain, the mistakes, and the challenges that had seemed insurmountable. Standing side by side now, we realized that every hardship had been worth it. Each struggle had fortified our love, deepened our bond, and given it new meaning in that quiet, intimate moment. I understood something essential. Happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. A journey of love, patience, courage, and mutual support. David held me close, and in the silence, no words were necessary to know that our love had been restored, trust rebuilt, and our family strengthened. We had learned that marriage is ongoing work. It isn't always glamorous, and it isn't always easy, but with honesty, patience, and deliberate action, love can thrive. Most importantly, I realized that love is not just a feeling, it's a choice, a series of actions, and a responsibility to one another and to the family we've created. Our story didn't end with perfection, but with something far more meaningful, a sense of stability, safety, and belonging. We were together in love, and ready to face whatever life might throw our way, hand in hand, hearts open, and fully committed to a future built on trust and devotion. In those moments, I felt the full weight and beauty of what we'd achieved. Every challenge, every temptation, every tear, and every difficult conversation had brought us to this point. We had rebuilt our marriage not just to survive, but to thrive, to nurture a home filled with love, laughter, and connection. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely certain that we were walking forward together, stronger and more united than ever.